Welcome to the Workers' Reading Room. Tonight I will be reading Chapter 17 of F.I.S.T by Joe Eszterhas. But first, a quick recap. In the previous chapter, we are introduced to Cole Madison, war hero and senator who has aims of eventually becoming president. He is chairman of the Senate Subcommittee on Racketeering, looking into organized crime with his eyes on Babe Milano, and also on the new president of F.I.S.T, Johnny Kovac. Meanwhile, Johnny, having moved to Washington, D.C. without Anna, is in the process of working on a national union contract. He visits locals throughout the country and finds ways to improve on the contracts that the former President Max Graham had negotiated. In the process, Johnny begins having an affair with his new assistant, Karen Chandler. The chapter ends with Johnny meeting with the heads of the larger union locals, informing them that they need to get on the ground and find out what their men want. He lets them know that now that he's in charge, their vacation is over. And now, F.I.S.T, Chapter 17. It was just past 7 o'clock and the morning was chilly. Fresh and alert, he carried the final edition of the Washington Post and a bundle of manila folders, and as he watched the last streetlights blink off, he thought back to the night he made his acceptance speech. He could hear the applause roaring through the convention hall, pumping through his veins. He could hear his own shouted words. "I'm gonna get you the biggest pay hike in the history of this union. It's gonna be the best pay hike of any union in the world. You work hard. You deserve the best. I'm gonna see that you get it. I promise you that." On this morning, the beginning of negotiations for a new contract between the Federation of Interstate Truckers and the National Trucking Association, it was time to make good on that promise. The first session was scheduled to begin at 9 o'clock in a conference room at the Mayflower Hotel. There was time to spare, but Johnny walked briskly. He wanted to get there early. He wanted to study the facilities, particularly the suite of rooms which the Trucking Association had reserved for use between bargaining sessions. He wanted to give himself every possible advantage because he knew that the man on the other side of the table, the man he had to deal with, Philip Talbot, had every reason to dislike him personally and professionally. Since his father's death in 1943, Philip Talbot had built Consolidated into the nation's largest trucking firm. That accomplished, Philip Talbot turned his attention to the interests of the trucking industry at large. In 1955, he was elected president of the National Trucking Association, and since that time had done everything in his power to deregulate the trucking industry and undermine union advances. He was, Johnny knew, a man not to underestimate. Phil Talbot negotiated the last national contract with Max Graham, and Max came home with a half-empty bag. Through the years, Johnny and Philip Talbot maintained a formally cordial relationship. Though they went their separate ways following their confrontation in the 30s, their paths crossed frequently, and though Phil Talbot always treated Johnny with seeming courtesy and respect, he knew in his guts how Phil Talbot really felt. Johnny strode into the lobby of the Mayflower Hotel. As he made his way to the elevators, a tall man with silver hair turned from the bell captain's desk. He was striking and dignified. He wore a dark cashmere sport coat, soft black leather shoes. He carried a large black leather attaché case with gold fittings. "Hello, Johnny," Philip Talbot said. "Hiya, Phil." They shook hands, smiled at each other, and got into the elevator. The doors closed and the elevator started to rise. Phil Talbot looked at Johnny, an amused expression on his face, his gray eyes twinkling. He smiled slightly. "It's good to see you, Johnny," he said. Johnny nodded, grinning. They were silent for some moments. "Well," Phil Talbot said, "I guess we can say this is a big day." "Could be," Johnny smiled. "Little early, aren't you?" "No earlier than you, Phil." The elevator came to a stop. The doors opened and they walked out. Johnny laughed. "Come on. I want to show you the place we got when we're not going to be talking." He waved an arm and started down the hallway. Phil Talbot smiled and followed him. They entered a suite of rooms. "Just like yours, huh?" Johnny grinned. "Nothing this lavish," Philip Talbot smiled. "Ours is much more modest." Johnny laughed. He walked to a desk and picked up the telephone. He looked at Phil Talbot and winked. "Listen," he said into the phone. "I want you to send up a couple pots of coffee, some donuts and rolls, maybe a couple orange juice, okay?" Phil held up a finger. "I've had breakfast, but thank you. I really must go." "Hey, come on," Johnny said. "Long time. Let's talk." "No, thank you." Johnny shrugged. He turned to the phone. "Skip it. I'll call you back." Phil Talbot smiled, waved, and walked out of the room. "See you later, Phil," Johnny grinned. As he walked down the corridor to his own suite, Philip Talbot was not pleased with the beginning of this day. He had wanted to arrive ahead of time to have a chance to think, not to get into a shadow boxing match with Kovac. During that long-ago battle in Cleveland, Philip Talbot had felt a grudging admiration for the man who had stormed into his father's office and humiliated him. But in later years, as he came to understand Winthrop Talbot better, as well as the forces driving Kovac, he came to see Johnny Kovac as the enemy, not only of his family, but of the free enterprise system as well. He had come to understand that his father was right. Money in business, in its many and varied forms, was America's most sacred institution. When Winthrop Talbot died at the age of 72 of a heart attack, still working 10-hour days on the top floor of the Talbot building, Philip Talbot was 41 years old. By that time, he knew as much about the trucking industry as any man on earth. Within 8 years, he succeeded in making Consolidated the industry leader in both size and profits. He had more than 25,000 employees on his payroll. He owned more than 28,000 trucks, tractors, trailers, and shipping containers. He had routes in 45 of the 50 states, with interlines in the remaining 5 states, and he had moved into Canada and the Yukon Territory. Through all of this, Philip Talbot had managed to go over, around, or through the increasingly complex maze of federal and state regulations, which applied to interstate truck traffic. He also made peace with the unions, especially with the Federation of Interstate Truckers, if only because it was expedient. He was a consummate politician. His timing was precise, and he knew exactly when to retreat and when to advance. But now, as he opened the door to the National Trucking Association suite, Philip Talbot realized that he was afraid. Kovac played by a different set of rules. Kovac refused to embrace those niceties which made difficult situations tolerable. Kovac made deals, Philip Talbot knew, but only if the people he was dealing with were already on his side of the fence. But if you employed truck drivers, his men, Kovac recognized no common ground. You saw it his way, Philip Talbot knew from painful experience, or you got sledgehammered. He paced the room restlessly, thinking about these things, when suddenly he realized how hungry he was. He had lied to Kovac. He didn't want to have breakfast with him. He never ate breakfast, but this morning it must have been his nerves. He went to the phone and dialed room service, but before he could place his order, there was a knock at the door. "Just a moment," Phil Talbot said. He put the phone down and answered the door. A waiter stood there with a cart loaded down with rolls, toast, eggs Benedict, and coffee. "You must have the wrong room," Philip Talbot said. "I didn't order this." "Compliments of Mr. Kovac, sir," the waiter said. He handed Philip Talbot a card. "Nobody ought to negotiate on an empty stomach," the card said. Philip Talbot sat at one end of the long boardroom table, Johnny at the other. Flanking them were 2 of Talbot's aides in Vince Doyle and Bernie Marr. A stenographer sat in the corner. "Let the record show," Philip Talbot said, that discussions between the Federation of Interstate Truckers and the National Trucking Association relative to a 3-year contract began at— "I don't want to do it like this, Phil," Johnny said. Talbot looked at him. "Let's just kick things around. We don't need the stenographer in here. Everything's off the record," he grinned. "Man to man." Talbot smiled. "Thank you, Miss Osborne. We'll call you later." The stenographer got up and walked out of the room. As soon as she closed the door, Johnny stood up. "I'm not going to blue sky you guys," he said. "I know the profits you had last year. I tell my guys to go out, they're going to go out. Phil, you know that. I'm not Max Graham. This is the first national contract I'm working out. I've got something to prove to the guys. You don't fight me this time, we're going to get along better next contract that comes around. I give you my word." "We'll do our best, Johnny," Talbot said. "The price of living increase is 5.5%. You want an 8% hike. We'll go 7. 8, Phil. The number's 8. Talbot got up and walked around the room. "We'll go 7 only with a flat guarantee you'll stop any wildcats within 48 hours. Plus, the meal allowance hike isn't 50 cents, it's a quarter. The living allowance isn't $1, it's 75 cents. No rear loadings," Johnny said. "No rear loadings. You can any dispatcher that—" "We'll do our best to watch the dispatchers," Talbot said. "Fuck that. I'll do my best to stop the wildcats." Talbot smiled. "All right, Johnny. As a good faith gesture, we'll lay it down flat. We don't have to, but we will. Any dispatchers whom your locals can prove took a bribe will be dismissed." He paused. "How about it? Do we have a contract?" Johnny grinned. "Not so fast, Phil. Not so fast. We've got time. You trying to rush me into something?" That night, Johnny discussed Phil Talbot's offer with Vince Doyle and Bernie Marr. "Take it," Doyle said. "We can't get a better deal." Johnny shook his head. "You don't like it," Bernie Marr said. "I want 8. "They're not gonna go 8, Vince Doyle said. "The goddamn hell they won't," Johnny said. "Talbot's gonna screw with me? His old man tried that." As negotiations resumed the following morning, there was a noticeable chill in the proceedings. Both sides seemed braced for battle. Johnny put it bluntly. 8 it is, he said. "No deal, Johnny," Philip Talbot said. "You got any idea," Johnny said, smiling, "what you guys are going to lose?" "I'm sorry, Johnny." Johnny stared at Talbot. "It's your balls, Phil." Johnny announced the outcome himself. He stood on a stage at a union hall in Baltimore, his arms outstretched. Hundreds of men were before him, stomping their feet, cheering and applauding. "You asked for 8?" he shouted to them. "I got you 8. I got you the biggest hike this union's ever had." A copy of the new issue of Time magazine was on the committee table in front of Cole Madison. The headline said, "Blue Collar Push," and the cover was a color photo of Johnny stepping from the cab of a truck. Cole Madison looked at the 7 other senators around the table. One of them was Donald Carnes of Illinois. "I asked for this closed executive session, gentlemen," Cole Madison said, "because I believe the Rackets Committee should expand its investigation in another area. Our investigation of the activities of Mr. Anthony Milano has shown Mr. Milano's friendship with the Federation of Interstate Truckers and its new president, John J. Kovac. We have also uncovered traces of a link between the Midwest Council and organized crime. I make this suggestion with some regret. I have long had a profound respect, as I am sure all of you have, for the labor movement and its accomplishments. But I find frightening the possibility that the head of one of this country's largest unions, a hero to the workers of America," he held the magazine up, "may have ties to the bosses of organized crime." In the corridor afterward, Carnes stopped Madison. Carnes looked agitated. "Is something troubling you, Don?" Cole Madison grinned. Well, bluntly, Carnes whispered, are you sure all this is a good idea? All what? Well, getting into this Kovac business. Madison smiled. It seems to me we have a responsibility to get into it, don't you think, Don? Carnes smiled. Maybe, Cole, maybe. But you have such a bright political future. You don't want to bite off more than you can chew. Are you telling me, Cole Madison grinned, that Johnny Kovac is too big a bite for the Senate of the United States? Carnes laughed. Frankly, Cole, no. It's not the future of the United States Senate that I'm concerned about. Oh? Cole Madison said. He slapped Carnes on the back. I appreciate the advice, Don. Babe Milano sat in the Rutherford B. Hayes suite of the Statler Cleveland Hotel, a club sandwich in front of him. He took a bite of it and grimaced. He put the sandwich down. You come to Cleveland on a Sunday, Johnny? Milano said. Forget it. Only thing open is the goddamned hotel coffee shop. You should have called me. I didn't want to call you. We can talk better here. So how about it, Johnny? It's not smart, babe. It's a free country, Johnny. Who says we can't make a deal between friends? Johnny shook his head. Madison's got some guy looking for me with a subpoena in D.C. I've got dozens of subpoenas, Milano grinned. They can't prove nothing. We're gonna land you $1 million with those rackets guys sniffing around? It's not smart, babe. It's business, Johnny. You make loans out of the pension fund to all kinds of people. You're gonna give us the same rate as anybody else. There's nothing wrong with that. Johnny walked away from him. With his back to him, he said, What do you know about Madison? Milano laughed. He's a flash in the pan. He'll get a couple write-ups, fold the committee, go on to something else. Carnes said he's running a crusade. There's no such thing as a crusade. Carnes got a guilty conscience. Johnny smiled. What do you say, Johnny? All right, babe, he said, his voice low, his back still to Milano. You work out the numbers with Vince. He turned on Milano suddenly, his voice harsh. You put up good fucking security, you hear? You make your payments on time. It's coming out of the guy's pockets. Milano smiled. What are you worried about, Johnny? Our Dun & Bradstreet, it's the best. Dave Roberts handed Higgins the subpoena and smiled. Higgins stared at it. Johnny walked into the office. What's going on, Tom? This man's from the Senate committee, Johnny, Higgins said. He's got a... My name's Roberts. I'm an investigator for... Johnny looked at him. I know what the hell you are. Higgins got up from the desk hurriedly and handed Johnny the subpoena. Johnny sat down and looked it over. It's a subpoena, Roberts said. It requires you to... You tell me what it is you want, Johnny said. A list of Local 302's financial assets from 1952 to... We don't have them. A list of banks where those assets are deposited. We don't have them. Names and salaries of Midwest Council business agents. We don't have them. Records of Local 302's property investments. We don't have them. Records of Local 302's political contributions. Johnny smiled. Sorry, we ain't got those either. What do you mean you don't have them? Roberts was angry. We had a burglary last week. Somebody cleaned out the files, right, Tom? That's right, Johnny. A burglary, Roberts said. That's right, Johnny said. There's robberies all over the place. Roberts smiled. And of course you made out a police report. Johnny looked at Higgins. Tom? Absolutely, Johnny. Johnny grinned at Roberts. They got any suspects yet? He said to Higgins. Not yet, Johnny. Give 'em a call today, Johnny said. Make sure they're working on it. Johnny grinned, picked up the subpoena, and ripped it into pieces. He handed the pieces to Roberts. You tell Madison, he said, his voice calm. He's fucking with the wrong guy. He wants to play a game? It ain't gonna be tennis. Ilona Kovac stood over the cake for her 64th birthday in the living room of her house in the Flats, surrounded by her family and her old country friends. She looked at the cake and the smiling faces around her and, obviously touched, said, "Cake no good, make you fat." Johnny laughed. "Stop crabbing, Ma. Cut it up." "Make a wish, Mom," Anna said. "Blow the candles out." "Old age," Ilona Kovac smiled. "No more wishing." They laughed and Ilona Kovac looked at her grandson, his big eyes on the single candle at the center of the layered chocolate cake, and said, "Joey, you blow out the candle with Grandma." The boy looked at her and smiled. He drew in a big breath and, together, they blew the candle out. Johnny led the applause, and as Ilona Kovac cut the cake up, he looked at Ziggy Zagon, his beer belly sagging, who was huddled in a corner with Mishka. Mishka had become very thin and feeble. Johnny went to them. He put his arm around Mishka. "How's business, Ziggy?" he said. "Going to hell like everything else," Ziggy Zagon said. "More bother than it's worth," Johnny laughed. "Yeah? How many times over are you a millionaire?" "It ain't funny, Johnny," Ziggy Zagon said. "Everybody moving out of the Flats or into the grave. Damn Negroes moving in." Johnny looked at Mishka and said, "Well, Mishka is still here." "Him?" Ziggy Zagon said. "Stay in his house like an old man. He don't drink." "I drink my own," Mishka said. "His own. Poison even the Negroes." Ziggy Zagon laughed. "You taste it, Johnny?" Mishka said, and Johnny said sure and laughed. In front of them, Joey handed his grandmother a multicolored throw rug. She took it and kissed the boy and said, "It's beautiful, honey." "Grandma's birthday," the boy said. "Yes, honey, it's Grandma's birthday," Ilona Kovac said. "He made it himself, Mom," Anna smiled, "from cigarette packs." Ilona Kovac held the boy and kissed him again and said, "Best birthday present Grandma ever got." Johnny watched them, smiling. "You no want to taste it?" Mishka said. Johnny laughed and Mishka led them into the kitchen and poured the wine into 3 glasses. "It's better than the X-Lax," Ziggy Zagon said. Mishka said, "I bought it special for your mom." Ziggy Zagon grinned and said, "He want to poison your mom, Johnny." "Where do you make it?" Johnny laughed. "I got a shack in the backyard," Mishka said. "In his shack," Ziggy Zagon said, "the old fool, dancing on his grapes." Johnny tasted it and grimaced. "Good, Johnny?" "Terrific." "Better than what Ziggy sells?" Johnny grinned. "Much better, Mishka." "More?" "Sure." Johnny drank the wine and Ziggy Zagon laughed. "See?" Mishka said to him. Behind them, Joey came into the kitchen, crying, the throw rug in his hands. It was in pieces. "It broke, Daddy," he cried. Johnny picked the boy up in his arms and held him. "It broke," the boy said, tears running down his face. "It's okay," Johnny said. "Here, Daddy'll help you fix it." He got down on the floor, his arms around the crying boy, and he tried to put the cigarette wrappers together again. Rain beat against the station wagon's windshield as it pulled up to the lobby of Cleveland's Hopkins International Airport. Anna was driving. Johnny sat next to her and Joey was in the back seat. The radio was on and an announcer was reading the news. "You coming back Saturday?" Anna said. "I don't know, Anna. I got all kinds of stuff." In the back seat, Joey said, "I don't want you to go, Daddy. Can't you stay?" "Did you hear that?" Johnny said. He turned the radio up. "The San Francisco local of the Federation of Interstate Truckers has threatened a wildcat strike for tomorrow morning. Abe Belkin, the president of the local, said his men will walk out." Joey said, "I want Daddy to stay, Mommy." Anna shushed him. "Because of a dispute with Bay Area trucking officials over the dismissal of 3 men yesterday from Trans-Bay Freight Lines. The walkout could cripple the trucking industry from Seattle to Los Angeles. After this message, sports." An upbeat jingle came on the radio. Lost in his thoughts, Johnny stared into the rain. Joey said, "I love you, Daddy. I love you." He turned back to the boy, distant and preoccupied. "I love you too, Joey." When he got off the plane at Washington National Airport, reporters crowded around him. "Your contract with the National Trucking Association prohibits wildcats. Are you—" Johnny grinned. "We're gonna honor our contracts, fellas." "Have you been in touch with Mr. Belkin in San Francisco? This union always honors its agreements." "But have you—" He smiled. "That's all, fellas. Give me a break. We'll have something for you as soon as we can. Thanks for coming out." In the limo with Vince Doyle and Bernie Marr, Johnny said, "Tell Talbot I'm working on it. There ain't gonna be no wildcat." "I talked to Abe before we picked you up," Doyle said. Johnny smiled. "What'd he say?" "He doesn't give a shit what the contract says. He's going out tomorrow." Johnny grinned, then shook his head. He turned to Bernie Marr. "Get me out to San Francisco first plane tomorrow." "Do you want me to come?" "Keep the lid on," Johnny said. "I don't want no press." "Johnny," Vince Doyle said, "what's the use of you running out there?" He turned to Doyle angrily. "This thing could tie up the whole West Coast. What if the whole region goes out, for Christ's sake? It could bust the contract wide open." "He's not going to change his mind," Doyle said. "He don't listen to reason." There was a pause. Johnny didn't say anything. Then he turned to Bernie Marr. "Bernie, I want to know everything there is on Madison." "Madison?" Doyle said. "Abe's gonna fuck up the agreement we got. What are you worrying about Madison for?" "Listen, I can handle Abe, Vince." "Nobody can handle him." Johnny ignored it. He looked at Bernie Marr. "I want that stuff when I get back." "There's only a couple days, Johnny. That's not much time." "Fuck that," Johnny said, his voice loud. "I don't want to hear it. Get it." At Karen Chandler's apartment that night, Johnny sat in the living room in his robe, smoking one of his little cigars. He had a drink in his hand. Karen came out of the bathroom with a towel around her. She looked at him. "What's wrong, Johnny?" "Nothing." He got up and went to the window, his back to her. She watched him. "Johnny," she said after a while, "there are no strings." "Everybody's got strings." "Not me, Johnny." He looked at her, then turned back to the window. "It's Abe. He's gonna screw up the whole thing. The contract, everything we got." "But he's a friend of yours, Johnny." "He's got these cockamamie ideas." "What ideas?" He paused and looked at her. "He ain't realistic. He's like you, before you lost your cherry." He smiled. "Ain't that what happened?" "Maybe," she said. "Maybe you're right." She grinned. "Isn't he ever going to lose his?" Johnny laughed. "Abe? Not him." The house in San Francisco was on Vallejo Street. He got out of the cab and walked up the steps. He rang the bell. Molly opened the door. He grinned. "Hello, Molly." "Johnny," she said. "What a—" He looked at her. She was wearing slacks and a blouse. The blouse was unbuttoned and he could almost see her breasts. "Look at you, Molly," he grinned. "You're still a sight." At the dinner table that night, Abe's children, Benji, 12, and Betsy, 10, sat with them. "What did you do then, Uncle Johnny?" Benji said. "Your dad and me, we sat down and we said, we're taking no more of this. We're going to talk to the men." Abe Belkin laughed. "We prayed Grant wouldn't find out, that's what we did." "We waited for the tomatoes," Johnny said, "and we said, we're not putting them inside. We're going to let them freeze." "Didn't they get mad?" Betsy asked. The boy made a face. "Aw, Betsy," he said. "Yeah," Johnny grinned. "Sure they got mad." Molly walked into the dining room from the kitchen. "All right, to bed you two." "Did you win, Uncle Johnny?" Benji said. He glanced at Abe. "Sure we won." Abe laughed. "Everybody lost their jobs." "No," the boy said. "They didn't." Johnny smiled. Later on we won." Molly brought the children to him and he kissed them goodnight. When they were gone, Abe said, "Whatever happened to Gant?" "He had a stroke, croaked right on that goddamn platform of his." Abe laughed. "We bought that warehouse, you know," Johnny said. Abe laughed. "You bought Fleckner Foods?" "They went bust. The place was up for sale." Abe asked, "What did you use it for?" "Nothing," Johnny said, now laughing himself. "But it's ours." Abe roared. "Are you kidding?" Johnny laughed. "I would have spent $1 million to own that place." They looked at each other and roared. Their laughter faded, then died, and they looked at each other uncomfortably. Later that night, as they sat on Abe's patio, they again looked at each other, and again they were uncomfortable. "I can't let you do it," Johnny said. "It's my strike, Johnny. We've got a contract with them. No wildcats. You're gonna screw up everything we got. They fire 3 of my guys for no reason, and you want me to take it into mediation, Abe. That's all. That's what the contract says. Screw around for 6 months waiting for a decision? Give them their benefits until then," Johnny said. "Benefits? It's the principle of the thing." "God damn your principles," he said angrily. "You want me to take out hundreds of thousands of guys because 3 clowns on the West Coast got canned?" There was a pause. "Is that what they are, Johnny?" "You get them back to work tomorrow," Johnny said. His voice was cold. "This is my local, Johnny. We're staying out. You do what I tell you. It's my union." And that is the end of Chapter 17 of F.I.S.T. Thank you for listening to the Workers' Reading Room. Have a good evening.